Shut your bitch ass up. SYBAU. I
I
neither.
like it.
I do too. Welcome to the JudgeMental Podcast. Today we discuss the feedback that we got from the community with our bet and how many judges were in court. Hugh is still traumatized by the lack of judges when we did roll call. We discuss family court judges that have the time to visit schools and their extracurricular activities, including one judge that has recorded numerous podcasts. All right, let's start by talking about our reporting on Tuesday. Have you seen the feedback online?
I have. And it's funny, the different platforms have completely different feedback. I noticed on like one of the platforms, everything is positive and everyone's talking about, good on you for exposing this and like, all this supportive stuff. And then you'll go to the next platform and it will be a little bit more antagonistic.
Yeah, I think TikTok for sure. I can tell that some of the judges, I would believe, have told their friends to go and post like, my bestie's a judge. They work hard, which thank y'all so much for that because that boosts us up in the algorithm. So
Yeah.
get us out to as many people as possible. We love the love. We love the hate. We love the questions. We love it all because the goal of Judgy too, and I do think we should talk about this because I have my own perspectives on judges. Some judges that I may think do a good job, you may adamantly disagree with me.
Yep.
But Judgy is not you. It is not me. Judgy, we kind of created from my perspective. We're going to Judgy's going to allow people to judge the judges. We want the good. We want the bad. We want the ugly. We just want accountability. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really important, and it's going to be harder to get the good because it's not sensational. It's not the kind of thing that's going to be viral, and it's sort of the world we live in, but it's really important that we have the good on there and we have people reach out and talk about stories. And we have actually had people, I've seen messages about, that are supportive, and we want to have those stories too. The vast majority of people that reach out to us are with sort of horror stories and, related to what we reported on Tuesday. From my perspective, I know that there were some judges there that weren't running, that weren't sitting in court and having hearings that day. There were probably some that were in the building, and that's fine. And I get that just because your docket isn't open doesn't mean you're not necessarily working.
Right.
But I also know that was important to me to show what I experienced fairly recently as a practitioner when I would go over and I would have orders that needed to be signed. I would have simple orders that would take 20 seconds for someone to sign that would let me get into a case so I could avert an emergency.
Right.
Things like that I just couldn't find anyone, and constantly being told by staff when I try to, there's a way you can reach the judge's chambers at the end of the hall by, buzzing back, and the staff member will tell you, oh, the judge is out or the judge is on the bench, but if you wait around 15 minutes, she'll be off and, I'll bring you back and you can, she'll sign that order for you to have access to a case or something like that.
Yeah.
There are certain times of the day, usually in the afternoon, or certain times of the week, usually on Friday, that I would just regularly be told that, oh, the judge just isn't here. And I just wouldn't go. Even when my office was a couple blocks from the courthouse, I wouldn't go after 3:00 ever to go try to find a judge. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we didn't go over there at 3:00. I mean, when we said, let's talk about going over just at random times and seeing who's there and what's going on in the courthouse, we said we'd never go over after 3, certainly never after 4, because we know that, I mean, it's just hardly anybody's ever there.
Now, I have the full expectation at 3:00 there should be judges in the building.
Oh, I have the full expectation, and I think people would be interested to see that.
Yeah.
It was more interesting to me to go after lunch and 30 minutes after lunch. So people, you're not just seeing if someone got back, 10, 15 minutes late for lunch or something like that. I mean, if you have a hearing, your first hearing after lunch gets canceled or something, and you will just take a little bit longer at lunch, everybody's going to do that. I mean, everybody's going to do that at a job. I'm sorry. I mean, I would. I mean, 10 minutes, but the 30 minutes in, the day has started back. And so my issue with it is I guess I wasn't coming at that from any particular perspective other than it really shocked me, and I thought people would be shocked by it.
Yeah.
And when the next part that we talk about, when we start reporting on how far out hearings are in divisions, that's going to be really interesting because, okay, let's just assume judges are in the courthouse. Every single one that wasn't on the bench, that at least, there was one judge in family court that had that they were off that day. There
Right.
wasn't a docket that day. That's fine. Everybody does that. Everybody takes time off, and maybe it was just set aside to write orders or whatever. But of all those judges who had things on their calendar and weren't in the courtroom, why couldn't there be a hearing? And I know, so we were there on a Tuesday. On the previous Monday, there were hundreds of attorneys that were getting hearing dates from the court, and they were going in the back, and they have an issue that, a lot of them can wait. A lot of family court issues, surprise, surprise, deal with
Important.
urgent things related to kids, medical care, education. I mean, there are a lot of motions that were on about school selection for the next year. And you might think, okay, there's still a month and a half left. That's not enough time. It's not even worth bringing the motion now over there because it will take so long. And those attorneys, some of them were being told that there wouldn't be even a short hearing time in court until the end of the year or early next year.
Yeah. And
So that's why that was my issue, is like, okay, if that's the case, it's not because you have so many things scheduled on the docket, because nobody is over there.
well, and it's also like, I mean, you look at district court, 6 of the 16, which, I guess in hindsight, if I think about it, and I thought about this last night, juvenile court could have been going on and it could have been closed and we didn't see an open courtroom. So that's entirely possible. We need
Yep.
to check for that next time. And if we made a mistake and there were 7 of the 16, I'll still have won the bet and that would be 12. I still would have been owed the beer, but I will apologize. But district court, they're doing a whole heck of a lot of written orders, okay? There's a lot of clearing the dockets, stuff being argued, preliminary hearings. It's just a matter of finding probable cause, sending it up to circuit court. Traffic tickets, they're just disposing of stuff. And so the fact that there were 6 in the afternoon, and I believe online they have 6 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon, and there's a significant backlog in district court, from my understanding. Significant. And now we don't have enough data on that because they don't collect it for what I consider to be obvious reasons. But that being said, they've set up a system that effectively allows them to work part-time on $141,000. That's a problem. That's a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what's happening,
Yeah.
that should bother people. It certainly bothers me. I've practiced in district court, but it's been many years, and nothing that I had was the kind of thing that would just get delayed in court. They were smaller things that you could put on the docket. Being a private attorney, you could put it on for the next day usually, or 2 days later. Every now and then you'd have something in probate court that you would schedule, further out, but it's usually because there's a waiting period before you can have a final hearing
Yeah,
on
yeah.
something. And so I just didn't encounter it. I did encounter on every single case that I practiced in family court for 20 years, but especially in the last 5 or 6.
Right.
And there is a great variance between the divisions. Some divisions can get you in much faster or have a good system of, if there's a cancellation, we will reach out to people to say, this canceled. We know you were trying to get in there. We're going down the list in order. And
In 10 years, I never had that happen.
Oh.
That could have been the old guard. I'm literally, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll ask my old paralegals, but I never had that happen.
you have to ask for it. I don't think it's something that, that people know about, but I would always ask. So if I had a client that was going to be prejudiced badly by the delay in a hearing, and if you, in a family court action, are representing the financially disadvantaged person in the situation, let's say somebody just emptied the bank accounts, took possession of all the money at the very beginning, and ran off, and your client is left without access to any funds and sitting in a house where stuff has to be paid for, maybe has the kids with them, you need access to the courts. And so I would always ask, okay, I understand we can't get a hearing date before this date. Can we, if you have a cancellation, would you reach out to me? And some of the divisions would absolutely do it. And it wouldn't happen most of the time because there might not be a cancellation that, and sometimes if there was, both attorneys, had to also be available. So,
Yeah.
it's also hard to match schedules with attorneys. I mean, to have a court have a hearing date and both attorneys be available and your witnesses be available, that is difficult. But more and more, I just found that I would just have to tell the client it's probably going to be 3 to 6 months before we can get into court to resolve this. Well, we don't need much time. Give us like 15, 20 minutes. We
Right.
can go in there and it's just really simple. That's just not how it works. The shortest hearing that we're going to get is 30 minutes. The next 30 minutes hearing 2 weeks ago when I was in motion hour was 6 months out.
That's
I can't
insane.
imagine that we're going to get anything sooner than that. And some of the divisions, like I said, it might be a month and a half. It might be 2 months. And if you were scheduling it, I always found if you were scheduling it at a case management conference, which is midweek, not in the cattle call docket of a motion hour where you're competing against everybody else for dates.
Well, a case management conference, though, I would
Yeah.
say for listeners, is what I would consider kind of like a pretrial.
It-
If you think
it
a
is.
criminal, yeah,
That's
it's
what
just
they-
like
When I first started practicing, they were called pre-trials, even
Okay.
in family court. So yeah, I think they may have had a midweek something cancel, and and I would regularly get those at case management conferences. We had something cancel. Would this week work for you? You might get in, in the next 3, 4, 6 weeks or 3 months. But by and large, if you are scheduling a hearing, let alone a trial, I mean, a trial takes. If you need a full day trial or even a half day trial, you're looking at many months out, and you just have to sit and wait.
Yeah, I just know when I follow up on the docket, like I'll look at somebody's docket and then I'll go back and see if a settlement happened. And I know Division 7 had a full day trial, but that was canceled, and I don't believe any hearings were conducted. But I do think, like, for example, let's let the TikTok judge have a break for today. But we have one judge that has done, I believe, like 100 podcasts, a family court judge. And we're sitting here doing a podcast. How time consuming is this?
Oh, nothing at all. Just a few hours during the work week.
And then the editing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll let you know how long once I finish editing our first one.
So
It's time consuming.
Beyond.
And your courtroom is sitting empty.
Yeah, it's time consuming. And then also, like, it's just obviously right now, you and I, but this is Derwin Webb. And he had a matter of perspective with Judge Derwin Webb, which, if you notice, there was a name change there, which I'm just, being very speculative, but I think there probably was a complaint for using the judge name on a podcast.
Oh,
But
I didn't know anything about any of.
yeah, really, you
So,
didn't know he had a podcast?
I did not.
Oh my gosh. Okay. It's like tons of episodes, and it is actually shot at Fraser Museum.
Oh, that's nice.
It's gorgeous background, and you can tell the editing is done very, very well, which I also think kind of begs the question
It's
of,
a lot more time consuming to do something on location and deal with. Yeah.
and also what's that cost?
I mean, that's.
To rent the Fraser Museum?
I mean, maybe, but
Video?
maybe. I mean, if it makes money or you're using your independent money, I mean, I don't.
Well, I looked it up. I couldn't find an LLC, and I actually called Fraser Museum when I was interested in starting the podcast and was like, hey, I want to start a podcast. You guys have this an option? And they were like, what are you talking about? Which also kind of begs the question to me, are any of these judges getting favors using their judge status? You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm a judge. Can I get access to this? And I'm just asking questions. I'm not saying anything for sure.
Yeah, but also, I mean, saying, hi, I'm Judge so-and-so, do you have space? Like, if somebody says, oh, it's a judge, maybe we would let them do that. They're not going to trash the place. They're going to be, better. And the ordinary reasons for us not renting the place out maybe would be different. I don't know.
I'm going to have to consult the federal statute on public corruption on
Yeah.
that one. I don't know. That makes me nervous. I certainly wouldn't advise that a judge do it. And of course, I'm not making any sort of allegation. I'm just saying what I've
agree.
seen.
No, I agree with that. I'm just, yeah, I mean, I would imagine that it's a title that opens doors whether you actively seek it or not.
Yeah. Well,
People
and
know who you are.
that division is one, and to give the benefit to Derwin Webb, that is a division that I can say with pretty much 100% certainty, there is demeanor from the bench. You are not going to be chastised. You are not going to be spoken to in a way that is just like soul crushing, whether litigant, pro se, attorney. There is definitely a decorum from the bench in that court.
And it's, I mean, I would say more so than most any place I've ever practiced. In fact, I've had some
Yeah.
cases that were just crazy and you left exhausted and they were fun to practice,
Mhm.
but you just, what is going to happen today? I have no
Yeah.
idea what's going to happen in that courtroom. But the one thing you did know was you just never expect anything out of the ordinary from the bench, and you knew that everything would be decorum would be maintained by all the
100%.
parties. He would make sure everybody acted correctly. He would do it in a very authoritative way but still very professional.
100%. Yeah.
It was always just a pleasure to try cases in that courtroom. Now,
pleasure is a different word for me just because of the rules of evidence and things like that.
Yeah.
But knowing your client wasn't going to sob and like on the way out was definitely something you could guarantee.
Oh yeah, no. The client experience in 10 was that, I may not win. The judge listened. You could tell he paid attention. He wasn't looking at his computer screen or his phone. And in my experience, and if an objection was made or you were arguing some finer point of law, I loved the fact that he was curious enough to want to know more about it, ask you to explain and to tell you where you got that from and hear it out. And then if it was complex enough and he wanted to go read about it before he ruled on it, he would take that issue under submission and move on to the next thing so he could properly take the time to look at it instead of a knee-jerk reaction about it. There was actually a curiosity there to get it right.
Now we said all the positive things, but now talking about the podcast, I will say, and I'll say this pretty confidently, and especially from the people that I've talked to that are pro se as well, his division takes the longest to get an order in Louisville. I mean, you're talking...
In Louisville.
Yeah, in Louisville, for sure.
It's not even close to the longest if you look in the Louisville region. But in Jefferson County, yeah.
And so he takes the absolute longest to write orders. I have people that have reached out to me that I've verified, that you're talking about. If you're being denied access to your child, and even if you win and get access to your child, but if you're waiting 6 months, 9 months, 12 months to get that, there's no way, shape, or form, I don't care what, there's no way that outcome is in the best interest of a child, which is supposed to be the goal and the standard for family court.
Yeah, no, it was very frustrating. I've had cases that had safety issues, that had big decisions after hearings that, and I'll be honest, so there were hearings that had some safety issues. I had a case that got transferred out of his division just because of the amount of work it would be. I think he got another huge case that would be very time consuming, and they reallocated hours just so that one judge didn't end up with cases. Our case management conferences were a day and a half each, and we would have them often. So we probably needed 14, 15 days of trial in the case. And he got us in within 2 weeks for the emergency hearing and heard everything. And it was like, he was taking it very seriously. And I felt very good about that. But then the order didn't come for a long time. And there was this sort of status quo that was going on with both parents having access to the child that was, at least from our perspective, our client's perspective, dangerous.
Yeah.
And by the time the order came out, and it was really only after it got transferred and the new judge reached out to Judge Webb to say, we can't move forward with certain things until you rule on this. By the time it came out, the status quo had been going on long enough that the friend of the court, or I guess the guardian ad litem on the case, had just sort of said, well, it can't be that dangerous. But who knows what would have happened during that time if all of the things that we proved at that hearing were, had actually, the worst case scenarios had come to light just because we were waiting and there were no protections in place.
And then you have time to go record a podcast, and you have a time to go visit and take pictures at school with children. And on a regular basis, and I taught at a Title I school, loved it, loved the kids. If you want to have hope for this country, you need to go do that. Hardest job I ever had. But and it's great for judges to go meet. But when I was in Asia, and I know you've been to Asia several years ago, I distinctly remember in Cambodia, and this was probably a year and a half ago, seeing all of the pictures on each street corner of like the politicians, the kings, all of that, surrounded by children. And it really struck me because I thought about a lot of the propaganda, or I'll use the word propaganda, that our judges do, where they're taking pictures at elementary schools and middle schools and in the middle of the day, which is also their work day. And just the notion that is so disarming to the general public. Oh, hey, they care about kids. And I'm not saying that they don't.
I was about to say, it'd be hard to want to be in that position, in that job without caring about kids, I would think.
Well, what's more important? You got a kid that's in serious, risk, and you can't issue an order to protect that child, but you can go have a photo op at a Title I school.
I'm not saying that that's incorrect. What I think though is that the court process, it just becomes like a machine, and the cases are like pieces of a machine, and they're less actual real kids. I mean, and that's speculation, but it has to happen.
Right, right, right.
If you're sitting up there and there are tens of thousands of new cases coming in, those individual fact scenarios and cases stop looking like individual fact scenarios and cases. And if you're sitting in one hearing and you got 5 more directly after, you're sort of mentally about halfway through one, you're mentally preparing for the other. And I think that's just natural. I think it's a problem with the system. And I will always say that family court is a court of last resort. It is the last place you should be actually making decisions for your family. And it should only be for emergencies and people who just cannot be reasonable with each other to get things done.
Or
But
victims of people that can't be reasonable. But yeah, I know exactly.
victims.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, you're right. There are a lot of dockets that I did not practice very often that I tend to sometimes forget about. But
Well,
there are, yes, but I consider those emergencies.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
if someone in danger, whether it be kids, adults, anybody that's being victimized or in danger, there are provisions within our statutes that require those cases to be in front of a judge within a very specific time frame, and that's
Well, there's a new movement, and I think this is a great way to like segue on, and we'll come back to Division 10 maybe at a later date. But there's a huge movement, and we call them high conflict cases. But within the family court reform, and I've been dabbling in that for like a year now, the notion that it's two people that can't co-parent when in reality it's one person that can't co-parent.
sure. No, I agree with that.
And I
I
think
agree.
there is a fundamental, we have this saying, and it's terrible. And oh my gosh, don't get mad at me. But when I first started practicing, I heard it and it was like green bugs. You know what I'm talking about? You ever
I
heard
have
that?
heard this, but I don't remember.
It's like green bugs like attract green bugs like green bugs.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
was like if you've got a crazy person on one side, the other person might be crazy. Or you've got a difficult person on one side, the other person might be difficult. And I do think after practicing and then being out of it, oftentimes when you're going to, like I know you told I told my client, you do not want this person making a decision about what color you do your hair, let alone your kids, for crying out loud.
Especially given, okay, imagine we have a half-day trial. Well, each side gets half of that. The attorney's going to be speaking 80% of the time. You're going to be giving some of the answers, but I got to get some testimony from other people, and then we've got some documents. That is the only thing the judge is ever going to know about your life.
Right.
And you're asking him or her to make decisions on the most important aspects of your life, your children's life, your future, your financial future. All of that's going to be decided based on that small amount of evidence. And that's if you're in a county like Jefferson County where you have 10 divisions and they can devote a half-day trial to things. Or like in my case, a multi-day trial, you're going to, I fully expect I'm going to be waiting a long time for a long multi-day trial. We're taking up an entire division for a period of time. I get that. But in a lot of counties, you're going to do your full trial in 2 hours or less.
Oh, yeah.
And you're dealing with custody, parenting time, safety of children. You're also dealing with retirement accounts, maintenance, child support, all the financial stuff, who keeps what bank accounts, whether you're going to have to sell your house. All of that is being taken care of in a 2-hour period with the attorneys, and we love to talk.
Oh, yeah.
And then the parties that really matter just get to answer questions and have to be reminded, oh, you're only here to answer that question. Don't talk about anything else. Just yes or no to this and give us the short version of everything because we're in a time crunch. And your whole life's going to be decided on that?
Totally. I mean, dude, this is crazy, but I tried a whole SA case, circuit court jury trial in one day. I mean, voir dire, trial, sentencing, all of it went in the counties when I was a public defender.
That happened. I mean, some of the towns where I grew up or where I lived when I was younger, the smaller towns in the South, that was just how it was done.
Yeah, I remember like the first time I got a hearing date for something and, or one of the first times when I first came into family law in Louisville and I was like, 2 hours? We don't need 2 hours for this. I can do this in 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, and the other side, it was Dee Pregliasco. Did you ever have a case with her?
Oh, yeah.
I will. Oh, my word. She put her finger in my face one time during mediation. Ooh. It was so bizarre. And I remember being like, I didn't know. I almost wanted to giggle. And obviously I respect my, elders. But it was so shocking to me because you have a SA pretrial with a prosecutor where like something real bad has happened. Like, and there was, you didn't get spoken to like that from a prosecutor. We're doing our job. And Dee was so mad about it was something like so arbitrary. I remember being like, you know what I mean? I ain't
But
in
what
Kansas anymore.
was her client there?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not in front of the client. Because if it had been done in front of my client, I don't know. Like, I do remember being like, just looking at the wall because I did, I can be reactionary, and you don't like, that's an aggressive stance to take with somebody.
It is.
And I just remember being like, I don't actually know what to do other than like, and I told you this story off the record, like, I won't, not about this one, but another judge that one time was like, I remember I was up there and you just were like, you backed up to the podium and I was worried that I'd offended you. And I was like, honestly, you were just screaming and embarrassed yourself. Like, and I didn't know what to do other than to just be
another
like,
attorney, you mean?
no, this was a judge.
Oh.
This was one of the judges that, a female judge. But I just remember, I digress, but it's so shocking to me when people lose their control like that about something so minimal that it makes me feel embarrassed
There's
for
some
them.
people that practice that way, and I'm not saying Dee was one of them because I got to know her pretty well. One of the things that surprised me coming from a non-family law background was the showmanship.
Yeah.
Like I saw plenty of posturing in politics and lobbying and that kind of stuff, but the showmanship, especially if a client was in a room, and then how the demeanor could change immediately when it's just the attorneys like in the room with the mediator and everyone's totally cool and
Yeah.
it's a show. And then once you figure it out, you react differently to things. Then there are the people that only practice by getting angry, and they figure that a certain percentage of the time they're going to win just by being the loudest person in the room, and they don't have to prepare all that much. And then there are those, and I always found my former business partner was phenomenal at never getting riled up and would make people melt down by just not taking the bait and like smugly smiling and then just waiting for them to finish and then talking about something totally different and not reacting. And it worked so well. And I've never been great at that.
I'm
but
terrible
I
at it.
realized exactly there's certain types of people that's how you deal with them. And boy, it works. I've had judges tell me after I've just stayed calm and let people rant and rave and then just gone about getting my proof on and sat down calmly afterwards that they just really enjoyed watching that. That it was, a good way
I'm
to
known
handle
for
it,
being
but
crash out Christine, no doubt.
oh, I can be. And
Yeah, but I've never put my finger in somebody's face unless I was
no,
expecting it to
that would bother
escalate.
me.
Yeah.
And I found that I don't know when that was.
2014.
Okay. So yeah, I remember practicing with her as she moved a lot more toward mediation before she retired. And it just, people, I guess they mellow and practice differently. But
Well,
I had more cases then, and I came in expecting, there were some older attorneys also that I'm thinking of that when you got a case with them, oh boy, you prepare your client and they're going to be very aggressive and they'll be in your face and they're going to just at this deposition, they'll dig into anything and everything to wear you down. And then they'll get to the important stuff. And then you get in there and they're just laid back and you realize that, oh yeah, just people do tend to mellow. And it's just like, oh, this is very different than it was like 5 years ago when I had to sit through a deposition that you were conducting.
Well, I think too, it was like I came back in 2014. She didn't know me. I don't think she would have talked to somebody that was like one of the regular practitioners. Like, I think she just thought, who is this girl? You know what I'm saying? Like, I was brand new. And I got that a lot from the bench. But I got a funny story about Dee. She called when I was teaching, and she was so desperate to come to speak to the kids as far as like for a media appearance, as far as like for a women's group that she was in, just about how important it is to vote. And I did ask her, I was like, are you going to tell the kids that they should or shouldn't put their finger in someone's face when they're an attorney?
What did she say?
She just said, oh, how are you? The typical like da-da-da-da. And then somebody else from the organization came. Well, and you realize too, like there's so many people, from how I was raised, it's like the person that could be the low man on the totem pole could be the smartest person in the room. Oftentimes they are the smartest person in the room. And so you got to be careful at the battles you pick with people that you don't know just for the sake of picking them. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree completely. And one of the things about family law that's very different than a jury trial is if you're you have a style that is, I'm always going to be angry and try to make the impact, or I'm the one that is always going to somehow be the victim. And it's going to be like every little thing is an affront to this or to that and make it something bigger. That's a style that could work if you're in front of a jury the first time and only one time.
Right.
But if you're in front of the same judges year after year and they see you and you do that every single time, it has no effect whatsoever other than your client might think, oh, that was brilliant. It looks great. But it's almost like you have a playbook and the judge presiding over it or opposing counsel, if they've tried cases with you before, you know exactly what's coming,
Yep.
almost word for word. Oh, this is going to happen. And sometimes you get it out of the way. You plant something just to get them going off on a tangent because you know that they can do it, and that you use it to steer the trial. I've just never found that kind of practice to be
Effective.
effective. But
Long term,
I
yeah.
remember people trying to rattle me when I came in, and I was a young kid coming in there acting like I knew what I was doing, and
Ugh.
oh man. And it just, but yeah, I also remember those same people that gave me a lot of hell and messed with me when I was younger. If I came out and I did a good job at a hearing, it was like sort of your rite of passage.
Yeah.
Everybody was cool with you, and you were,
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
that was the weird thing for me, though, was I was like, y'all, I've already done this. I went from Boston to Eastern Kentucky. Can you imagine? 25 years old, like, oh my gosh, I'm here to like, just arrogant ego, all the things. They put me in their place, but I was just like, I've already paid my dues. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
but if you haven't paid your dues there,
yeah,
this
yeah.
is different. You get, oh hell, I mean, I know you had to have experienced it years into your career. You go out to some other county and you get, you know,
Oh,
unless you look like an old withered, grizzled attorney, as long as you look somewhat youthful, people are gonna try to rattle you and see what you're made of,
well,
and
I
you're a
feel at
new
home.
commodity.
No, I feel at home in the counties. That's how,
Well,
I was raised, like not like actually, but like legally raised by that old school home cooked. So I understand the notion of like, hey, go introduce yourself to the police officer. Hey, introduce yourself to the
yeah,
sheriff.
no,
Hey,
that's
go to the clerk. Like, hey. And then if they start to say something, obviously I got an accent too, which does help, but I'll just be like,
no, it's huge.
I will say something, I'll be like, y'all, if you're trying to home cook me, I used to practice in Eastern Kentucky and I got a, prosecutor's cell phone you can have. They'll show you how
Well,
it's
just go
done.
work the room and talk to the other
Yeah.
attorney. If the opposing counsel's in the courtroom, go introduce
Yeah.
yourself, and yeah, I mean, it makes a big difference. But
Jefferson County is
mean,
foreign to me, the way it's handled. Louisville thinks it's the most important thing to ever live, and it's a nearly $6 billion judicial budget, and it is the most inefficient part of the judiciary in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, in
I
my
don't know.
opinion.
I could point out tons of problems with decisions being made without a hearing that should be made without a hearing, but I always found that in Jefferson County that happened far less than anywhere else. In so many places, it was just, all right, we're all here. Let's just hash it out right here at motion hour,
Yeah.
or here's what I think should happen. Why don't you guys go do this? We don't need to have a hearing on this. And you're thinking, it's not the way it works. Might make a lot of sense for practical reasons. It might save a lot of people a lot of money if they can't afford for their
Right.
attorneys to go have a hearing. I get why it happens, and it happens very organically in a lot of courtrooms where clearly the judge is familiar with both parties. They've been in front of the judge a million times.
Mhm.
They brought this other issue, but it's still a court of law. It still requires a hearing with people sworn in before you can make a
Totally.
decision. I saw that far less in Jefferson County. And in fact, I became, it was a little bit when you got so used to it happening outside of Jefferson County that you almost didn't get upset about it when it happened. But when I would see it happen here in Jefferson County, I would get really upset about it because, oh, that doesn't happen here. We get hearings. We actually sit down, and if I need a 2-hour hearing, I can have a 2-hour hearing on one issue, which you can't get most other places.
Oh, you're going to be shocked some of the video I've gotten recently where judges aren't swearing people in here in Jefferson.
Oh, I wouldn't be shocked. I remember.
Sorry, go on. I interrupted.
Oh, no. I remember walking out of a hearing. My former law partner walked out of a hearing on a different floor, and we met, and we were going to go back to the office. And I said, how's it going? Well, we started without swearing anyone in and go straight into testimony. He's like, how about you? And I'm like, same exact thing happened with me. Had to stop and go back through everything because we all realized that we had never really started. No, mine was maybe didn't go on the record and started the hearing without going on the record, never had the record running, had to start over. And his was no one got sworn in, so they had to start over and go through it.
Yeah, I mean, because what is the definition of testimony? Sworn statement.
Yeah.
A statement that is not sworn is not testimony.
And it's not an affidavit that can't be cross-examined.
So it's just, and this kind of, and I mean, this is so basic that it's shocking to even have the conversation. The level of, I mean, is there a word other than incompetence? I don't know.
I don't know.
Make a checklist, swear parties in, check.
Yeah.
Turn cameras on, check.
Is it the result of a system where you just have too many things going on and you're processing it like a factory, and things fall between the cracks.
Okay, well, what happens when a factory falls between the tracks? Or like what happens like there's a massive lawsuit because somebody gets hurt or like
I'm not justifying it. I'm just trying to think of, there are explanations because I see it happen. I mean, frankly, I've seen it happen in the judges I like to practice in front of most. People that I know are intelligent, people that I have known personally that are fascinating, smart people that just in any other aspect of their life aren't doing those kinds of things. So
we could make him a checklist and send it to him. I don't think that would be ex parte.
Well, honestly, I've practiced in front of judges who had lists of these are the only objections you can make. Here are the rules. Here are the proper objections. When you make an objection, state what your objection is. And it was so clear that when you did it, they weren't familiar with any of those objections and didn't understand how they worked, even though they had them put, right there and taped onto the litigation table. So I don't know that would help.
You can't make it up. You really cannot make it up.
We need some justice. My life is fine, justice.